Vanakkam Makkale. Welcome back to another episode of our r/Kollywood podcast. Today I have with me on the panel Siege Bro, who you might have heard from last in our Hey Ram podcast on 25 years of Hey Ram. Or go check that episode out if you haven't. And today we also have Kaipula, who's joining us from the Kolly Romance podcast, as am I. So yeah, today I'm excited to have these guys to discuss a very recent release, one that's been making waves, Kollywood Lab. I'm sure you all have heard of it. It's probably, you know, all people can talk about in the class Jechircha Didine. It's none other than Dragon, which is directed by Ashwath Marimuthu and stars Pradeep Ranganathan, Anupama Parameshwaran, Mishkin, and a bunch of other talented people, including some YouTubers. So, yeah, in today's podcast, we're going to be discussing why this movie works as well as it does, why it's making waves, what Kollywood can learn from it, and everything else in between. So, yeah, hi guys, welcome. Glad to have you here.
Hello, JK, and hello, Kaipula. Really
Hi
excited to
guys.
talk about Dragon.
ரொம்ப நாள் கழிச்சு ஒரு ஃப்ரெஷ் படம் வந்திருக்குல்ல கோலிவுட்ல
ஆமா
ரொம்ப நாள் கழிச்சு அந்த
Correct.
ஃபீலிங் தான்
ஆமா
எனக்கு இப்போ.
And fresh, and also not with like a big star or whatever, right? Okay, you can argue that Pradeep
ஆமா
is now probably a
Mm,
pretty big
mm,
star, and he's kind of capturing that youth
yeah.
space which SK has kind of vacated because he's gone to the next level. So, ஒரு மாதிரி ஒரு எப்படி சொல்றது circle of
ஆமா
life மாதிரி
அதே நிஷ்
நடக்குது.
ஆமா
Yeah,
யா
really feels like a circle of life type of
ஆமா
thing. But no, I was really
ஆமா
pleasantly surprised with Dragon, and yeah, really excited.
most of us
ம்.
were pleasantly surprised, especially if you guys caught the
Especially
trailer. This is
ஆமா
probably, yeah, this is such a misleading trailer, and I think it
exactly
paid
after
off
that
for them in the long run.
ஆமா
I think
after that
Mm,
trailer I don't think
ஆமா
anyone was expecting. During an interview they were completely shitting on the film like Nanbana Don
ஆமா
2
டான் 2 எடுக்க போறீங்க. ஆமா ஆமா
ஆமா
yeah. So I don't know, maybe it's a master stroke of marketing that they decided to
ஆமா
do in the மாதிரி ஒரு misdirect. It worked for
yeah
the film's favor.
I just
Ah.
hope, right, it doesn't result in this new trend where they start showing misleading trailers for every other film, because it kind of worked for this one.
Mm,
Because
yeah.
Namboola, I
ஆமா
mean, not just Kohli, but in pretty much Indian cinema, ஒரு ட்ரெண்ட் பிடிச்சதுன்னா வந்து சம்மந்தமே இல்லாம they will keep dragging it, right?
Mm,
It kind
ஆமா
of
ஆமா
worked for
விக்ரமோட மிஷின் கன் மாதிரி.
exactly.
ஆமா
ஆமா விக்ரம்.
It kind of worked well for this one because of the genre and what they were going for. It was sort of
Mm,
subverting expectations, right? நீங்க வந்து ஒரு
yeah, yeah.
ம்
if you try to replicate this everywhere, you can't keep subverting expectations all the time, because for
It
that there has to
won't.
be expectations in the first
ஆமா
place for subversion to work. But we'll talk
Mm,
about that
yeah,
in
yeah, yeah.
ம்
Yeah, so yeah, speaking of which, full disclaimer right here. This is going to be a spoiler discussion of the movie. We're going to be going in depth into its story, the characterization, and everything. So இந்த படத்தோட ட்ரெய்லர் பார்த்துட்டு இந்த படம் பார்க்க வேணாம்னு நீங்க இருந்தீங்கன்னா தயவு செஞ்சு அந்த தப்பை பண்ணாதீங்க. This movie, is not what it seems from the trailer. It definitely deserves a watch, maybe even two, if you really like it the first time around. So, yeah, if you guys haven't caught the movie yet, please, tune out now, and we'll see you once you've done with your show, right? Bye. See, now that they're gone, let's continue with the
let's
people who
continue.
actually see through. Vanakkam Makkale. Welcome back, Dragon Makkale. Yeah. So, so about that trailer, and I think like adding to what Siege said, I think it also worked because during the promo junket for the movie, all the people were like, no, they were very insistent that illa trailerல நாங்க ஒன் லைனர் காட்டல, ஸோ ப்ளீஸ்
ஆமா
டோன்ட் அதை வச்சு எடை போடாதீங்க அப்படின்ட்டு பிரதீப்பும் சரி, அஸ்வத்தும் சரி, ஈவன் நம்ம ப்ரொடியூசர் அக்கா அர்ச்சனா அவங்களுமே சரி, trailer has just been cut in a way to temper expectations, but the concept வேற அப்படின்றது. And I think that is important. That is an important part of the strategy that Siege Bro mentioned. Like அந்த ஒரு செல்ஃப்
ம்
அவேர்னஸ் இருக்கணும், இல்லைன்னா it just falls flat. It just comes off like
yeah
ஆடியன்ஸை
definitely
கிராண்டடா எடுத்துக்கிறோம் அப்படின்ற மாதிரி. So
ஆமா
yeah, let's get right into the movie's discussion, right? So where did you guys catch the movie? Like, and
I
what was your experience with it?
நான் வந்து I caught it well, not first show, but one of the first shows on the first day. But now on the start, I was like between Neek and Dragon. If I were to watch a movie, it was any day going to be Dragon, because it looked like a more fun trailer. It just looked like it had everything. Even if usual story grammar did na, that I didn't care at all. I was just there for Pradeep and Ashwath Mariputtu, and I caught it, and like everyone, I was just completely surprised. And the secret one-liner Ashwath Mariputtu
ஆமா ஆமா ஆமா
that was just amazing. I completely caught me off guard. So yeah, I was just completely thrown back by all the surprise.
கண்டிப்பா. சீஸ் ப்ரோ நீங்க?
எனக்கு இன்ட்ரெஸ்டிங் திங் என்னன்னா, ஐ வாட்ச் திஸ் மூவி குவைட் லேட். In fact, it was mostly to prepare for this podcast. So one day after work, I went to some. You see, எங்க town release ஆல, where I live. Unfortunately, I don't live in London proper. So I had to go to London. I mean, I work in London. So Londonல வந்து ஒரு தியேட்டர்ல போய் காலியான தியேட்டர் தான். So because obviously it was like a late afternoon show, weekday வேற. ஸோ நான் மட்டும்தான். ஸோ அங்கே போய் உக்காந்தேன். அண்ட் யூ நோ வாட், ஐ வாஸ் ஆக்சுவலி கிளாட் ஐ டிட் தட், பிகாஸ் ஐம் பிரிட்டி ஷோர் that if I'd watched it first day, first show, a lot of the smaller bits and pieces which kind of foreshadow what's going to come later on in the film, I would have probably missed because of all the ruckus, right? And to me, and I think we'll talk about this in a bit, right? What I really enjoyed was the fact that this is one of the most well thought out screenplays I've seen in recent times. Nothing is random. Nothing is random, and you can clearly see that Ashwath is not winging it. Every single scene has some sense. And even there were moments in the film where I was like, okay, this seems odd. I mean, why can't we just move on? Or okay, why can't we end the film wherever? But there is a reason why you have that sense of lag, if you want to call it that. And to me, I was glad I caught it in theater, because it gave me a lot of time to process the film as I was watching it, and also on the way back from home.
Like just to really quick bring it in, it's even more impressive when you consider that Ashwath says he's done all the editing at the script stage.
Yeah,
like there's been no major post production editing where in the scene chop பண்ணியாச்சு, அது எடுத்து இங்க போட்டோம், அது இங்க lag இருக்கு அதனால அங்க போட்டோம். His screenplay has been tight right from paper, which is such an impressive skill, especially for something like this.
He only shoots what he has written on paper. He doesn't shoot anything extra.
Which is like amazing. அப்படி ஒரு script sense இருக்கணும்ன்றது ஒரு சாதாரண விஷயம் கிடையாது. So props to him.
I'm pretty sure that AGS and Archana Kalpade would also be very thankful for Ashwath, because if you have that kind of
she said that
planning, even the producer's workload comes down quite significantly, right? Chumma ishtathukku you keep. See, let's face it, I mean, we have a very bad habit with a lot of directors today who just shoot as they go along. The film reel capacity issue kuda kadayadu, so digitally inga achitalla ninga. But I think that promotes a sense of there are advantages and disadvantages to that approach. One is that you can find the movie in the edit, but then whether you'll get a good movie out of it, I'm not very sure about that. As a traditionalist, I believe that
that's definitely true.
The script makes or breaks the film, right? So I think what Ashwath did was actually quite good. And one, I hope that a lot of younger aspiring filmmakers take to heart, and they just don't wing it too much, right? You can spend a year writing the script and shooting the film. Maybe it takes like 3 months. That's fine. But
இந்த படத்தோட மெசேஜும் அப்படிதானே, அஸ்திவாரம் இது வந்து ஸ்டெடியா இல்லைன்னா நீ வந்து வீடு கட்டணும்னு நினைக்காத. அதே டைஸ் பேக் டு தட் ஒன்லி. அண்ட் ஸோ பேசிக்கலி நான் வந்து எங்க பார்த்தேன்னா, நான் இங்க பெங்களூர்ல தான் பார்த்தேன். ஐ காட் இட் ஆன் சாட்டர்டே மேட்னி ஷோ டைப்ஸ்ல பார்த்தேன், லைக் ஜஸ்ட் ஆஃப்டர் ஒன் டே ஆஃப்டர் த ரிலீஸ். ஒரு லோக்கல் தியேட்டர்ல பார்த்தேன் இன் மை ஏரியா வேர் தேர்ஸ் லைக் தீஸ் தமிழ் ரிலீசஸ் அண்ட் தெலுங்கு ரிலீசஸ். அந்த லோக்கல் தியேட்டர்ல அது எப்பவுமே ஃபீச்சரா இருக்கும். ஸோ அது பிரச்சனை கிடையாது. யூ வில் பி ஏபிள் டு வாட்ச் தெம் வித் அ crowd that understands the sensibilities of these movies and all, because not to undermine the Kannada industry or anything, but they don't pump out releases as fast as like Tamil and Telugu do, at least as far as I can see on ground here. So நான் அங்க பார்த்தேன், and it was such an exhilarating experience. Like எப்படி நான் சொல்றது, everyone is just riveted, like scene after scene after scene. It's just such a riot. Like அந்த 2.5 hours போறதே தெரியாது. லைக் இன்டர்வல், அதுக்குள்ள இன்டர்வல் வந்துருச்சான்ற மாதிரி நான் ரொம்ப நாள் கழிச்சு ஃபீல் பண்ணேன் படத்துல. Like, I mean, you can see it coming, but like you want to know what's coming next. Like, you're not trying to, do mental maths and say like, second halfல தானே கதை வரும், இப்படிதான் எடுத்துட்டு
ஆமா.
போய் முடிப்போம் அப்படின்ற மாதிரி. So that was a refreshing thing for me. And எனக்கு என்ன ரொம்ப இது அமேசிங்கா இருந்துச்சுன்னா படத்துல வந்து அது அது எப்படின்னா லைக் அது எவ்வளவு ரூட்டடா இருக்கு அதோட ரியலிசம்ல. லைக் ஐ மீன் there's been discourse about back and forth about இதெல்லாம் சாத்தியமாடா இந்த உலகத்துல. பட் இந்த பிரபஞ்சத்துல வந்து யூனோ in this universe that Ashwath Marimuthu is constructing and setting up,
ஆமா.
yeah, it plays by the rules.
It
It
is
doesn't
possible.
bend
ஆமா.
anything. And yeah, unlike Oh My கடவுளே இதுல அந்த fantasy route இல்ல. Like
ஆமா.
there is no do over button அந்த மாதிரி ஒரு மேஜிக் டிக்கெட்லாம் இல்ல. So that's even more impressive that he's managed to pull off அதே வெயின்ல but in a more realistic lens.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
which brings
Like a
me to my next
natural,
question, which is like
like a
ஆமா,
yeah. Like
what
technically, if you
what
technically பார்த்தா Oh My கடவுளே தான், but is redoing in the aspect of like actually redoing college. It is
with actual rules. ஆமா
ஆமா.
ஆமா. Yeah. So what about the movie, the single thing about the movie that stood out to the most you guys, so that we can get into the story next? சொல்லுங்க
I
one by
think
one.
because it broke that classic trope of 48 அழகே வச்சிருக்கான், என்ன பண்ணாலும் காலேஜ்ல ஃபெயில் ஆயிட்டே வருவான், ஆனா சக்சஸ்ஃபுல் ஆயிடுவான் லைஃப்ல. I think it broke, for me it was breaking that classic and cliche trope of that plot point that kind of made it really cool to see what this guy would actually do if he got caught out real life, which is amazing.
ஆமா. சீஸ் ப்ரோ உங்களுக்கு?
எனக்கு என்னன்னா, say I'll take a step back, right? For me, this movie hit all the beats that I was expecting it to hit from a story standpoint. But what surprised me is it hit it at all the places I would not have expected it to hit it, if that makes sense. And we'll talk about it in some detail later. But that to me is a masterclass of writing, where you take something that is, for lack of a better word, predictable, but still make it something that you didn't see coming, right? And that overall was a very exhilarating experience, right? About the and I agree with what you said, Kaipul. I mean, and the trope of the backbencher, and let's face it, I mean, we had multiple films over the last few years, of, with that, right? And I like the fact that it subverted it, but it subverted it in a way which, for lack of a better word, is respectful, if that makes sense. எப்படின்னா, see, it does not
Definitely.
diss on films like Dawn, for example, which was heavily into that particular space, right? It does not diss on that.
Yeah, building upon what Sees Bro said, yeah, like it said, it doesn't have to diss on other films. Like நீங்க சொன்ன மாதிரி, I mean, ever since the trailer dropped, comparisons to Dawn were gonna be inevitable, right? Like especially since இத்தனை சூப்பர்ஃபிஷியல் சிமிலாரிட்டிஸ் இருந்துமே சரி என்னடா இதே மாதிரிதான் இருக்க போதான்றதுனால it doesn't try and make force the laughs or whatever. It's just all very organic. And அப்ப எனக்கு டக்குன்னு என்ன தோணுச்சுன்னா, like during when at that phase where he has to, at the crux point இல்லையா, where he has to go back to college and Mishkin throws the ID card on the barricade and it all ties back to the first half. I just realized that this is one of the Tamil films in recent memory எனக்கு that where the characters are driving the plot and the plot isn't driving the characters. That's how it's so strong. Because இப்போ நீங்க சொன்ன மாதிரி சீஸ் ப்ரோ, லைக் இப்போ ஒரு இந்த மாதிரி காலேஜ் படத்துலன்னா அந்த பேக் பெஞ்சர் ட்ரோப் இருக்கு இல்லையா, இதுதான் யூஸ்வல் கதை டெம்ப்ளேட் நம்மளுக்கு தெரிஞ்சிடும், ஃபில்ம் மேக்கர்ஸுக்கும் தெரியும். ஸோ தே ஜஸ்ட் லேசிலி டிக் ஆஃப் த ஸ்டோரி பீட். ஓகே, இவன் கதையில நான் கீழே இருந்தேன், தெருநாயா இருந்தேன், ஏதோ அங்கே எங்கோ கொஞ்சம் ஃப்ராடுத்தனம் பண்ணி நான் மேல வந்துட்டேன், இதுதான் கதைன்ற மாதிரி எல்லாம் எதிர்பார்க்கிற கதை தான். That's how you expect the plot to go, and that. But in the padam abdi illa. All the stakes come from the characters, and it's all tied to them, their motivations, the way they perceive things, and how they play into the central characters' story. Everyone also gets a chance to shine. So that's how you can tell. And the foundation is ரொம்ப ஸ்ட்ராங்கா இருக்கு அப்படின்றதுல வந்து. So yeah, எனக்கு அது தோணுச்சு. But building upon what Kaipula mentioned about the backbencher, get to backbencher trope. that we've seen in a gazillion films by this point. அது வந்து, what are your thoughts on how this subversion of this trope, came about?
I think for me, it became, I mean, that whole trope of the get to backbencher, it kind of became a little bit more interesting for me when they show us a daily routine of that guy's life. ஏதோ ஒரு வீட்டுக்கு போறான், ரீல்ஸ் பிக் பாஸ் எல்லாம் பாக்குறான், இந்த காசுலாம் ஃப்ரெண்ட்ஸ்ட வாங்கிட்டு அம்மா அப்பாட்டே கொடுத்து அவள்கிட்டே வாங்கிட்டு வந்து இவாள்கிட்ட கொடுக்குறான். ஆல் தட் ஸ்டஃப் ஷோயிங் இட் இன் சச் டீடைல் ஃபார் மீ வாஸ் லைக், okay, so even வந்து they're setting up this guy to, like, for us to hate him so much that we'll actually be invested in this guy's comeback. And when they actually flip the switch and on a திருப்பி காலேஜ்க்கு, when at that interval point when he goes back to college, it's like, wow, okay, this is what they were setting all of the first half to. And I like that point, and that classic trope of he's not actually successful in life, which was what completely broke it for me. Which is like, usually college la வந்து they'll show all this get the backbencher trope usually in the college portions la. And I like how the college portion was only a little part of the first half.
It's the storytelling vehicle for the plot to advance, but அதோட யூனிவர்சல் தீம்ன்றது வந்து it is like a much bigger canvas இல்லையா? So எனக்கு சீஜ் ப்ரோ, உங்களுக்கு வந்து அந்த பேக் பெஞ்சர் ட்ரோப்ன்றது வந்து, is it something that needed subverting? Do you feel that it was long overdue அந்த மாதிரி ஏதாவது ஒரு சப்வர்ஷனுக்கு?
I would say so. See, let's be honest. In many ways, right? Because a lot of our commercial films are made for made by market research, for lack of a better word, right? They're all targeted towards a very similar demographic, which is 18 to 25 male. And let's face it, mathematically or statistically, it's very unlikely everybody is going to be very successful from an academic standpoint. So avanga vandu, most of them are going to be average to, for lack of a better word, below average, right? So avanga vandu, when they go and see a character that resembles them, coming from a middle class family, struggling with their education, but then somewhat successful in life, or that's how those films end up in, it gives them a sense of catharsis, because this is something like, okay, this is me, I can become like this even though I'm struggling right now, right? Where I think, and if you think about it, the arc is always very similar. ஒரு ஆள் இருக்கான், அவன் வந்து சரியா படிக்க மாட்டான், but then due to circumstances and a bunch of different things happen, and then he's successful. Super. This is the standard story beat. The very first thing that caught me off guard with Dragon, right, is the fact that they show, why does this guy Raghavan or Dragon become a backbencher in the first place? Aduve Vande was something very unique. He's a guy who's actually very good in studies in school. There's a particular reason why he kind of abandons it. So it's not for a lack of academic ability. It's a choice that he makes. And then what really also...
It's an important piece in the puzzle.
Very important piece, exactly. But I've never seen that in any other backbencher film. They don't show why this person is not...
And the competence-ன்றத அவங்க establish பண்ண மாட்டாங்க.
Exactly. And again, you kind of then also buy it when he starts becoming successful despite all the malarkey that he does with the cheating and whatnot, because inherently he has decent ability. It's just that he's not channelizing it very well. And then where again it subverts once again is, அங்கே வந்து முக்காசி படம் முடிஞ்சிடும். You see him struggle, he's successful, அமெரிக்கா போயிடுறான், he finds the girl of his dreams, end of story. But அங்கேந்து வந்து they take it to another level where they show that this guy is successful but in a very hollow way, and then eventually set him on a path towards the last 20 minutes of the film, where eventually by societal standards he might not be quote unquote successful, but as a human being he comes out as a better person. When was the last time you saw such a complex arc anywhere? And to me that really is what made Dragon very, very endearing. In a way, I think what Ashwath was trying to say is, he did not just subvert the get the backbencher trope. I think he destroyed the trope completely. He said that is not the point of a human being's life. Ultimately, what what matters is you do the right thing, right? It doesn't matter whether you're a front bencher or a
Hmm.
back bencher or what. And did it
Hmm.
in a, like I said before, did it in a very respectful way, which again was highly surprising.
இப்போ என்ன பொறுத்தவரையிலும் பாத்தீங்கன்னா, லைக் அகைன் டு கண்டினியூ ஆன் த த்ரெட் தட் சீஸ் ப்ரோ பிக்ட் அப் ஆன், அந்த ட்ரோப்ன்றது, அந்த கெத்து பேக் பெஞ்சர் அப்படின்ற ட்ரோப்பை வந்து கிளினிக்கலா எடுத்து கம்ப்ளீட்லி ஸ்ட்ரிப்பிங் இட் ஆஃப் இட்ஸ் கெத்தினஸ், லைக் பேசிக்லி ஹோல்டிங் அ மிரர் டு யூ அண்ட் சேயிங், இதுதான் நீ, திஸ் இஸ் வாட் நீ. எவ்வளவு வேணா டெலியூஷன்ல இருக்கலாம், நான் இங்க தான்டா கிங்கு, நான் வச்சுதான் ரூல்ஸ்ன்னு இருக்கலாம், பட் வெளி உலகம்ன்றது ரொம்ப பெரிய ஒரு சமுத்திரம், அதுல நீ வந்து ஒரு கால் தூசு கூட கிடையாதுன்ற மாதிரி ஒரு, இட் ஹோல்ட்ஸ் அ வெரி ரா அண்ட் ரியல் மிரர் அப். அண்ட் ஐ திங்க் இட்ஸ் மாஸ்டர்ஃபுல்லி டன். லைக் அது வந்து ஈஸிலி தி ஈஸி திங் டு டூ மோஸ்ட் ஃபில்ம் மேக்கர்ஸ் டுடே வுட் ப்ராபப்லி டன் இஸ், இது ஒரு லெக்சர் படமா மாத்திருப்பாங்க. லைக் ஃபுல் அண்ட் ஃபுல்லா எங்கெங்கமோ யார் யாரெல்லாமோ அட்வைஸ் பண்றாங்கன்ற மாதிரி மாறி இருக்கலாம்.
ஆமா.
தட் வுட் ஹவ் பீன் த
Like full and full
ஈஸி
cut.
ரூட், பட் they don't do that. They
ஆமா.
don't do that because, you know, if you take the character, the entire existence of Kutti Dragon as a character is to give the character of Pradeep, that is the OG dragon,
ஆமா.
a look
That
at what
regular
he
அந்த மாதிரி.
actually was like with an
ஆமா.
objective lens. அதான்
ஆமா.
இப்பதான்டா தெரியுது, இவ்வளவு மோசம், இவனை விட நீ மோசமா இருந்தான்னு சொல்லுவாங்களே. Like
ஆமா.
bro, that is just an excellent payoff. Like
ஆமா.
Satyama, this character
Exactly.
is just minting their worth. And I'm
ஆமா.
like, yeah, அது strip பண்ணதுல, I also, one more thing I'd like to appreciate adjacent to that, என்னன்னு பாத்தீங்கன்னா, that all the characters are human. None of them are cardboard cutouts of a certain trope or
Over.
whatever. They
ஆமா.
all have real, relatable motivations. Like இப்போ எல்லா டயலாக்லயும் ரிஃப்ளெக்டும் ஆகும். லைக் எஸ்பெஷலி இந்த கிளைமேக்ஸ் பிளாக். இப்போ
ஆமா.
அவன் அம்மா ஏன்டா இவ்வளவு கெட்டவனா இருக்கேன்னு கேட்பா, அவன் ஒத்துப்பான். he doesn't say like, he doesn't stay silent. அவன் ஒத்துப்பான், ஆமாமா நான் கெட்டவன் தான் அம்மா, which is a very relatable thing. Like obviously none of us are going to get through life with a, you know, a squeaky clean ledger in terms of morality or ethics. அவன் ஒத்துக்கிறான். ஆனா இன்னொருத்தனோட வாழ்க்கையை அழிச்சிட்டு நான் மேல வர அளவுக்கு நான் கெட்டவன் இல்ல. And yeah, how much more relatable than that can the movie get? Like, because it all depends on where
ஆமா.
we draw the line as a person. ஒருத்தர் கேட்டீங்கன்னா டிராபிக் ரூல்ஸ் மதிக்காம இருக்கிறதே அங்க லைன் இருக்கும். Some of us will be okay with jumping the traffic lights, going on the wrong side, but ஏதாவது ஆக்சிடென்ட், you know, not at the cost of endangering life. Yeah, so it's all about a subjective thing where we decide to find the virtue within ourselves and say, like, I think it's about, yeah, okay, நான் மனுஷனா இருந்தேன், இப்போ நான் ஹீரோவா இருக்கேன். Like, this is what is a heroic thing to do. And in terms of the central character, I think this is a near perfect anti-hero in Kollywood. Like, just the way, like இப்போ ஒரு அர்ஜுன் ரெட்டி கூட எடுத்துக்கிட்டீங்கன்னா கூட, there is like a very, still to this day ஒரு டிவைட் இருக்கு. That
ஆமா.
should we sympathize with him, should we not sympathize with him? And even that is a well written character. But in the characterல, it's so well done and so well performed that it's unanimous that this guy is a loser. Like, no, there's not one guy saying இதெல்லாம் கெத்து, இருந்தா இவன மாதிரி தான்டா இருக்கணும், லைக் யூ நோ, அது ஒரு சிக்மா மேல் மைண்ட் செட், அதெல்லாம் எதுவுமே இல்லை. ஃபார் த ஃபர்ஸ்ட் டைம் நான் பாக்குறேன் இப்படி ஒரு பாப்புலர் கேரக்டருக்கு வந்து யுனானிமஸ் வெர்டிக்ட் இருக்கு. லைக் ஓகே, இப்படி இருந்தா திஸ் இஸ் a pathetic way, everyone in the movie calls him out, but at the same time Ashwath is able to balance in the sense that அவனுக்குள்ள இருக்கிற நல்லதையும் அப்பப்ப காட்டுறாங்க. That he is not actually a loser, like Siege Bro சொன்ன மாதிரி, he is a competent guy. He is able to score. He was like 96% in 12th, so that's no joke in itself. So அவனுக்கு இருக்கு, அவனுக்குள்ள அந்த திறமை இருக்கு. He is able to do it. He's just circumstance and, you know, that the current path that his life is taking, அப்படியே அவன ஒரு ரூட்ல எடுத்து போயிட்டு இருக்கு. We know he's capable, so we kind of get exasperated. ஏன்டா பண்ண மாட்ற அப்படின்ற மாதிரி we end up rooting for him in an almost passive aggressive way. Yeah, especially in that last stretch where அந்த கடைசி பேப்பர், லைக் அவனுக்கு தூக்கம் தள்ளுது, you know, அவன் பார்த்து, and even in a very subtle visual storytelling, கடைசி பேப்பர் பார்த்தோன்னே ஈஸி பேப்பர் தான் அது வந்து அவன் கண்ணிலேயே தெரியும் அந்த ரிலீஃப். ஓகே, ஐ எம் ஹோம் ஃப்ரீ. பட் தென் கடைசி ரென்ச் இன் த ஒர்க்ஸ் இது இருக்கு. You root for him because this time he's put in the work, despite all of his shenanigans and the malarkey that he's done. you do want to see him win. And I think that's a masterful way to take this arc.
Just extending what you
Yeah.
said, JK. So, see, and the moment like you root for him, and அதுக்கப்புறம் வந்து when Gautam Menon calls Mishkin to do that background check, your heart is in
Mm.
your mouth at that moment. See,
Yeah.
I was like, see, because
Yeah.
he's telling it to students, நான் pass பண்ணிருப்பான், so it's just like building tension, but you're still like, okay, என்னதான் நடக்க போகுது, you still want, you're still
Mm.
like, ஒரு tension இருக்கு.
ஆமா.
And then when you find out he's passed, you feel really happy for him. But அதுக்கப்புறம்
It
வந்து
feels like a personal win.
it
ஆமா.
feels like a
ஆமா.
personal win.
Mm.
And let's say, for example, you didn't agree with all the methods that he took in the past, to get the job by cheating and forgery or whatever. He's kind of made amends
ஆமா.
for it, right? But இப்போ வரைக்கும் அந்த
Yeah.
பாயிண்ட் வரைக்கும் he's basically done something wrong. அதுக்கு பிராயசித்தமா இஸ் டன் சம்திங், தட்ஸ் இட். அந்த ஒரு பாவ கணக்குன்னு சொல்லுவாங்கல்ல, அது
ஆமா.
சொல்லுவாங்கல்ல, அது வந்து கழிஞ்சிடுது, அவ்வளவுதான். So he's now neutral.
ஆமா.
But to me,
Mm.
what elevated the story was the fact that he went one step beyond when he realized that he still did not do that clearance in his ledger in some sense, because he cheated in the end, right?
He
அதுக்கு
technically did. ஆமா.
அதுக்கு வந்து
ஆமா.
ஒரு இன்னொரு ஸ்டெப் இருக்கு, where he still needs to cleanse his wrong,
Let
right?
go.
Let go.
ஆமா. Yeah, yeah.
அதுல வந்து the steps that he takes, and because of that, the kind of realization he has as a human being, and then the fact is அவன் தோத்துட்டு கூட அவன் ஜெயிக்கிறான் அவன் as a human. He loses everything.
Mm.
He loses absolutely everything. You as a
Yeah,
viewer,
true.
you rooted for his success at the point when he writes that exam, but you root for his loss
Mm.
when he loses everything, and you say, illada, இவன் வந்து சக்சஸ்ஃபுல் ஆள், he might be a Swiggy driver or whatever, but he is a good human being. And to me, I don't care that he's not winning in the more conventional sense, like economically, or he's not with the girl or whatever, right? And to me, this is a very, very rare case of that kind of storytelling working for me as an audience, because and it looks like it's worked for a lot of people, because it's very easy for you to get frustrated with something like this. Yo, இது வந்து மெசேஜ் படம் ஆகிட்டாங்க, அந்த மாதிரி you can easily criticize it, but it doesn't feel like that, right?
ஆமா.
ஆமா.
It
I-
is. Yeah.
எனக்கு வந்து ஒரே ஒரு அனாலஜி தான் வந்து எனக்கு ஞாபகம் வருது. ஸோ லாங் டைம் பேக், ரைட், லைக் இன் த 90s, there's I don't know how whether you guys watch Hindi films, but for our viewers, right, there is a old Shah Rukh Khan film called Kabhi Haan Kabhi Na சொல்லிட்டு. It's a very old film, and you ask SRK even today, he'll say that's his best performance even to this date. அந்த படத்துல வந்து there was a lot of commonality between that film and this film in terms of the morality aspect, in the sense that you have two characters in both films who are inherently decent people, good guys, but then in order to get to their goal, they cheat, or they take a path that is not very becoming of their inherent goodness. And at some point they have to confront the fact that they have taken a crooked path, and really, really have a moment where they have to bear everything out to the people that they love, and in the process they lose everything, but you as a viewer don't feel bad for them, because you're like, this guy has succeeded in becoming a good human being.
Yeah. It's always an interesting moral, arena to explore. Like, do the means justify the end? அப்படின்றது it's a tried and tested classic, இல்லையா? Like, but since we're touched upon that part of the storyline, let's dive into it a little bit further. I'll be very honest. I did not expect the movie to go that hard in the home stretch. I thought, okay, சரி, இந்த ரெசல்யூஷன் வந்துரும், this is a realistic world, கடைசியில ஏதாவது ட்விஸ்ட் இருக்கும், but it will all turn out okay in the end. Like, okay in the conventional sense that these commercial Tamil cinema conditions are to expect. Like, என்னதான் செட்பேக் இருந்தாலும் கம்பேக் வந்து எப்படியுமே ஹீரோக்கு சாதகமா தான் போகும், because he's the hero, he has plot armor, அது இதுன்னு. But I swear, and it's very difficult to pull off when you consider that அந்த கடைசி ஸ்ட்ரெச்சே இன்னும் ஒரு 10 நிமிஷம் இருக்குமா மேக்ஸிமம் ஆஃப் டோட்டல் ஸ்கிரீன் டைம், 10 to 15 minutes of the
Pretty much,
total. It could have felt rushed. It could have felt so rushed in the treatment and kind of like an out of pocket மாதிரி scenario மாதிரி இருந்திருக்கலாம். But அதுவுமே is just so baked into the overall plot line that it's almost like Yeah, but then you're like, obviously, இதுதான் அதுக்கு ரெசல்யூஷன் அப்படின்ட்டு.
ஆமா
I thought அது ரொம்பவே மாஸ்டர்ஃபுல்லா ஆன ஒரு ரைட்டிங் அப்படின்னு நினைச்சேன். Because especially the decision to not show that he chased the paper until after the fact.
Yeah,
Like it's not
ஆமா
told to you then and there. Like, we find out after
after.
that
Yeah.
அவன் பண்ணிட்டான். And I think அதுவுமே builds the relatability a bit more because even on that path to goodness, you will have your moments of weakness.
Yes.
You will have those moments of weakness where you want to throw a Hail Mary and, kind of like have someone bail you out, slide back into your old ways out of desperation
ஆமா
more than anything else because you're so close. We've all been there in life. Like, I know I deserve this, but I've been dealt a shitty hand. Can someone, give me a get out of jail free card, Mari? நிறைய வாட்டி would have been in that situation. Yeah. And
ஆமா
I thought, adume, it's so well thought out in how we execute it. But then Ashwath really sticks the landing in terms of saying, you know what? Success உனக்கு வேணும்னா you shouldn't go with half measures. Because at some point you'll have to face the music.
The other thing, right, நீங்க சொன்ன மாதிரி JK, about you learning after the fact that he chased the paper, I think initially when they framed the film as a narration from Mishkin, I was a bit like, okay, why are they doing that? Chuma chuma, they're going back and forth and whatnot. But it all comes full circle in the end when the last stretch is basically Mishkin talking about what happened after that and why he is his most successful.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And now that we're on touching on that topic, I'm gonna shoot a real quick question to you, both of you guys. What, according to you, is the most powerful scene in the film? Like, not necessarily in a karuthu sense, but like the one that spoke the most to you as a standalone scene.
now and I was on the brink of tears when the George Mariano scene வரும்ல when he's talking about
Yes.
what
Same, bro. Same.
Yeah, yeah.
I was like
I
wow
would have said the same thing. Yeah.
ஆமா
Just brilliant. Yeah, it is such a brilliant setup. Like, you realize in that moment that he knew all along that
exactly
ஏமாற அப்படிப்பட்ட நல்லவங்க வந்து ஏமாறுறது இல்ல, அவங்க ஏமாறுறாங்கன்னு அவங்களுக்கு தெரியும். But they
ஆமா
persevere anyways because they still choose to believe in the goodness in you. And that's
ஆமா
a constant choice. And
அந்த
it just
முன்னாடி வர
hits like
கல்யாண
a
சீன் கூட
truck.
இருந்ததுல when he's like confessing everything and he's like yeah I did all this I did all that and stuff. I was like I'm waiting for what George Mariano is going to say because you already know what அவங்க அம்மா is going to
Yeah.
say. She's just going to be all like
Amma, yeah. Amma predictable. Yeah, yeah.
yeah but I was like
And
what is George
that was
Mariano going
such
to
a
say.
brilliant scene.
ஆமா
Yeah. And when he gives that little anecdote, yeah, like அந்த அந்த பந்தயம் ஓடும்போது ஒரு பையன் வந்து என்ன தடுக்கி அவன்
ஆமா
அவன் அவன் ஜெயிக்கிறதுக்காக நான் அப்படி தடுக்கி விட்டேன், என் பையன் நாளைக்கு அப்படி வரமாட்டான் அப்படின்ற அந்த ஒரு நம்பிக்கையில தான் நான் இத்தனை காலத்தை ஓட்டினேன். நீ என்னைக்கு உன் தப்ப ஒத்துக்கிட்டியோ, even though you had everything to gain from keeping quiet, என்னைக்கு நீ அதை ஒத்துக்கிட்டு இன்னைக்கு நீ மாதிரி நீ ஓடுற அப்படின்ற what a resolution. That's exactly where
that was
it could not get more perfect than that. சத்தியம் எனக்கு அழுகையே வந்துருச்சு. Because you think back, you think back to you run a short replay of your life on all the moments where something like that might have happened to you, where people
yeah
chose to place their faith in you, even though you were not going to do justice to them, that faith in any way, or because you couldn't, or because you didn't know any better. அந்த மாதிரி, and it just hits so hard. Like, that is the single best scene. And what a way to crescendo to it. Like, இவ்வளோ தாண்டி வந்தாச்சு. It all comes back to the father. And all the sacrifices he's made. And it really hits home the point that on the dark side of this movie's theme is that every time you try and take a shortcut to success, someone else is paying the price behind the scenes, even though you may not know it.
definitely
Like, whether it's the kid who got denied the Google thing, or who tried to அந்த wrist cutting பண்றதெல்லாம் இல்லைனாலுமே his father was bearing the brunt. Like, he literally had to pawn off his ancestral home. Yeah, like அந்த 10 லட்சம் வந்து, yeah, it was basically the last link he had to his life before. So but he's able to put that on the line also, despite his wife not agreeing. So Satyama,
considering that he had to do all of that, I was like, maybe he'll cry a little bit, maybe he'll raise his voice a little bit. அதெல்லாம் கம்ப்ளீட்டா இக்னோர் Panti, he was just chill. You could tell he was like kind of hurt voice length. That performance
Yeah,
was
yeah,
amazing.
yeah. George Marion is always on the money in these performances.
Um,
Like you can't.
I mean, can I just say
So
that
yeah,
all the
that was
core
my most.
supporting characters,
So
right, inspired casting choices. Like George Marin as the father, Mishkin as the
yeah,
principal, especially, and a
yeah.
few of the other. Like
Miskin got used very well
he got used
in
very
this
well.
yeah,
movie.
Mishkin. Yeah,
He got
exactly.
used very well because think having someone like Mishkin in that role is the reason why that role worked. You could have easily
Yeah,
had
he
someone
has that
who
kind of presence, la.
exactly, but
Yeah,
but
he
Um,
has
but a
that
presence,
presence.
but a presence that is not like overbearing. See, I if the way I see it, right? Like if Mishkin, the Mishkin, the way he acts or the way he looks or whatever, right? He's not trying to put him on a he's not giving him a pointless challenge. You know what I mean? To make his life miserable.
Hmm.
I think
Yeah,
that what is so
he's
nice is
on his side.
he's on his side.
He's
He
on
wants him to
Dragon's
win.
side,
Yeah,
actually.
yeah,
That's
he's
the
on his side.
refreshing
um,
thing.
Exactly.
Amma.
Whereas, see, either one, if you take Dawn, for example, right? Like S.J. Surya, for
Hmm.
80% of the film, it's like, he hates him.
Is against.
And then
Hmm.
suddenly when he's
Without
like,
reason,
without
apparently.
reason, and then,
Amma.
when after he almost dies and he's like, "Paral Nippo, I don't want to screw up your life and whatnot," it seems a bit left field.
Hmm.
Like, you don't buy it very well.
Kandipa.
It doesn't come across as very organic, right? Whereas with Mishkin,
Because
just the
that's the plot. Like, we just assume. Yeah, அப்படி இந்த கதைனா இப்படித்தானே போவோம் ஸோ அப்படிதான் முடிப்பாங்கன்ற
yeah,
நம்மளுமே ஒரு
அதுல
ஒரு
வந்து
கன்செஷன் கொடுக்குறோம்.
அது கன்செஷன் இருக்கு ஸோ
Hmm.
there's a plot convenience but it's also the choice of factor இங்க வந்து மிஷ்கின் வந்து he's very very he's downplayed it to a point where you kind of buy every word that he says at that moment without it appearing as a plot
Hmm.
convenience, which I thought was a very very good choice,
Yeah.
right? And George Marion வந்து he's used
ஆமா.
sparingly but he's used brilliantly. um, எனக்கும் அதே தான் the favorite scene was the last
Yeah.
one, when he picks up his son
Hmm.
and talks to him,
Tells
like
that story. Mhm.
that scene like was so powerful.
So, that was, see, இந்த படத்துல வந்துட்டு, like, in terms of the casting, I really think they hit the nail on the head in terms of every character. I mean, including the YouTubers who are there for digital clout, your VJ Sidhu and all that. Even there, like, the
mm,
casting choices are interesting because the expectation is that VJ Sidhu and Harshad Khan will be together. They'll be like a sort of,
Ama.
slapstick comedy கொடுக்க
Like they'll come
அந்த
together.
மாதிரி
I
இருப்பாங்க
think
நம்ம
they had
எதிர்பார்ப்போம்,
one
but they
scene
don't
together,
meet.
I think. Ama.
They had one, yeah, at the airport,
Ama,
and
ama,
that
ama.
is also
Yeah,
like, okay,
exactly.
அந்த
Yeah.
scene இதுக்காக தான். It's not
Ama.
interfering with the main plot line in any way. It's just there,
Yeah,
okay, you guys got, you know what, this part of your bang for your buck. Okay, now let's move on. Let's get it out
ama,
of the way. It was very clinically dealt with. So,
ama.
ஆமா. But speaking of characters, like supporting characters, Siege Bro சொன்ன மாதிரி, I
Mm.
want to know your guys' opinion on the women in Dragon, especially, the two women in Dragon's life. Do you think
Ama.
their characterization could have been done a bit better? Do you think one of them ended up getting a bit, short end of the stick compared to the other? Or do you think it went right for you? What would you have liked to see different?
I mean, Kaido Lende, I didn't expect too. I mean, I didn't know what to expect too much because she was literally just there to show Pradeep how good his life is with another partner. Other tavara, I
Hmm.
couldn't tell what other use she had in the story, but Anupama, I just loved the way her character was used completely. Like,
Yeah.
அவன்
Some
வந்து
might even say that அவ கேரக்டர் ரொம்ப
ம்,
டூ குட் டு பி ட்ரூன்னு நிறைய பேர் சொல்றாங்க, பட் த மூவி ரெஃபரன்சஸ் தட்.
எனக்கு
Yeah.
ஆமா,
என்னன்னா see
So
the
அதனால
too good to be true thing,
mm,
right? I'll challenge that, right? Let's face it, she explicitly says why she's helping him out as well. It's
ஆமா.
not just because they're
yeah.
old flames or whatever. She says that in that moment I thought the way I left you, right? அதுக்கு ஒரு மாதிரி ஒரு பிராயஷ்சித்தமா தான் நான்
Mm.
பண்றேன் அது, to see you settled well in life
It's
with the woman of
parallel
your
to
dreams.
his own track.
Exactly.
ஆமா.
And to
Mhm.
me it kind of makes sense. See, she's not making a rational decision, she's making an emotional decision, and in a way she's kind of
கண்டிப்பா.
atoning for what she believes are her sort of, for lack of a better word, mistakes, right?
Yeah.
And to me that worked really well. I thought it was a very good.
Mm.
I was like, okay, when Anupama, I mean, she's barely there in the first half, right? Like she after the college scene, she's not there. அதுக்கப்புறம்
One
she only
scene
comes
she
back
gets,
much
one big scene. That's
one
it.
big scene.
ஆமா
அதுக்கப்புறம்
ஆமா
I thought, okay, that's it. அவங்க தான் போயாச்சு. இப்போ next and they'll bring
நானும்
another
அதான்
hero.
நினைச்சேன்.
நானா தான்
Yeah,
நினைச்சேன்.
yeah.
Bringing her back was
Yeah.
actually an inspired choice. Again, that's the thing, right? All the beats were the beats that you would expect in a film of this sort. They just came at points which you didn't expect, right? And to me, this was really nice.
Exactly.
Yeah, it
And
helps the novelty.
the other one, Kaido தானே அவங்க பேரு, Kaido லோஹார் தானே. So
ஆமா
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 அவங்க
ஆமா
ஆமா
வந்து
yeah.
see
His
like
fiance.
like yeah, like Kaipalo சொன்ன மாதிரி, see, I thought she was, I mean, she was not, she didn't have any many great scenes. She was there to kind of advance Pradeep's arc. I know there's that moment in that airport where she kind of explains why she loves him and whatnot. Honestly, that felt like a little left field to me. Okay, it wasn't dragged out, so I was okay with it. Um, to me, where I think there's a slight disservice, maybe, but maybe I'm wrong about this, is that you never really kind of get closure on their relationship after the revelation,
Yeah,
right? I would have liked,
ஆமா
because ஆமா
I
yeah,
would
yeah.
have liked some form of closure. It
Fast
could have been
forwardல தான் போகுது.
exactly. It could have very well been that you have the same outcome. Don't get me wrong. That is the point of this film, that he can't just have
Of
everything
course,
in life by cheating.
of course.
But I would have liked one scene
ஆமா
maybe where it could have been as simple as she sees him and being a Swiggy driver or whatever, and they
ஆமா
have a heart to heart, which is
ம்.
and he's happy for her, and she's also kind of moved on, but in a respectful way. I think that would have brought it a full circle.
And yeah, just real quick wrapping up this segment, அந்த அனுபமா கேரக்டர் இதுல வந்து, like I mean, we, like Fish Bro said, her track of regret runs parallel to இது Dragon's own track, that not all of us get do-overs. You've been given a one in a million chance to to right your wrongs, take it அப்படின்றது. She's like the angel on a shoulder மாதிரி ஒரு catalyst. But other than that, one neat little thing that this little subplot also managed to touch upon, which I thought doesn't get talked about much, at least in cinema these days, is that how much we tend to take the givers in our life for granted. Like ipo, and the movie addresses that as well. Like when they're dating, all he does is take and all she does is give, right? But when she comes back in his life, she's still a giver. Nothing has changed despite all the bad blood and the rifts between them. She's repentant. He is still a bit resentful, but he warms up to her. And even though she has no reason to, she's literally, the dynamic isn't even the same anymore. She's the teacher and he's a student. She still goes out of her way to help him as if it's her own personal crusade, right? Because that's just, she's a giver and he again takes. And we see that when he comes back from the airport, dropping off her car, even in that last moment where they're probably not going to see each other again, probably except the wedding, she's gone to the trouble of getting him his ID card, his hall ticket, a change of clothes, everything way above and beyond what most friends in our lives would do for us. She's gone above and beyond and done that. And for a moment, he walks away. But then you see that this, another brilliant character moment, that he done the dragon illa. This is Raghavan.
He comes
He
back.
turns back and then he says, you know what, maybe, Anniki, ஒரு நாள், if I just, let go of my ego and my pride, நான் உனக்காக படிக்கிறேன்னு சொல்லிட்டு தான் இது எதுவுமே நடந்திருக்காது இல்ல அப்படின்ற மாதிரி ஒரு what if, but they don't make it into a big emotionally drawn out moment. And even that storyline is tied up so well when he says, I didn't deserve you. And that's the only closure we can get sometimes, because there's no do-overs over there. You can't unknow a person or erase their memory of you. So anga what's done is done. And I thought, okay, this is a nice touch. Like, even though we're in the home stretch of the movie, இது ஒன்று இருக்கு அப்படின்ற nice that they wove that into the plot thread அப்படின்ட்டு. But speaking of messages, Dragonோட central message, that is, you can't jury rig your way to success என்றது, do you think in the story and in the execution was an ideal way to tell it?
Well, I think this message was told in I mean, okay, there was some things that could have maybe been tightened in the script maybe, and it was like got too commercial for me. Apropos. But yeah,
Hmm.
I felt like this was a good way to convey that message, and I thought it was conveyed very, clearly, and there were no kind of
Hmm.
there really no space for misunderstanding anything in this story. But
ஆமா,
yeah,
ஆமா.
I think everything was pretty clearly laid out, and yeah, the message was pretty clear from this start that there's this guy that's
Hmm.
clearly failing at life by doing taking shortcuts. So don't take
Hmm.
shortcuts. I think that was pretty clear.
எனக்கு வந்து the message really worked on two levels. ஒன்று வந்து the actual message itself, of course, it was done very well and whatnot. I also really like the fact that it reinforces the thing that he's still kind of atoning as the film ends. You don't end up with
Hmm.
him filth or எப்படி சொல்றது, ஒரு if he's in a penance. In a normal film, the film would end with him completing the penance and getting the boon from the gods, or using a very
The
crude analogy,
salvation. ஆமா.
salvation, right?
Yeah,
In
yeah.
there, he has not
Hmm.
reached salvation. It's an ongoing process,
Hmm.
right? To me,
Hmm.
that is where this message comes across very very nicely, because you show that it's not something that you do and you're done with it. You have to keep working to it all the time, especially when you kind of
Yeah,
done all that you've done in that particular life, right? So which is why I think the
yeah,
message worked really well. It didn't come across as very heavy handed as well. That's the thing, right? Like in the end, your character, the person that you're rooting for, has lost everything, but you don't feel bad for him. You actually are like, man, I see it, like he's in a much better place than what he was while in that GVM company, right? And to me,
yeah,
that
yeah,
was a very good way, or a good way to enforce the fact that this message really struck chords with the audience, or really did with me as well. And the other thing, right, purely from a practical standpoint, I think this is one of those rare films where the message is actually related to the plot and the character's journey, rather than being something completely random, including
Hmm.
Pradeep's own films, right? Like if you take Komali and Love Today, you start off with something, but அந்த சம்மந்தமே இல்லாம ஒரு மெசேஜ் வரும் அதுல. இங்க வந்து the
ஆமா.
message is
It isn't
about,
woven as well. ஆமா.
it's not word, சம்மந்தமே இல்லாம ஒரு மெசேஜ் வரும். I mean, I'm not going into the validity of that message. I'm just talking
Hmm.
about how it integrates with the core plot and the character's journey in that. It's kind of shoehorned into it.
So yeah, before we move into that zone of on the Karuthu cinema and how this movie kind of shifts that equation, since I'm pretty sure he deserves all the accolades he's getting for his performance here, where do you want to see Pradeep Ranganathan's career go as an actor henceforth? Like from here on out, what would you like to see more of him in?
I
I
think
think he's doing pretty well on the relatable characters side. So if he just I don't know does something that the audience sees as Ning kuda sollireenga, JK, before the pod, that
Hmm.
he looks like someone you'd see in your everyday life kind of. So அந்த மாதிரி if he plays a lot of relatable and I don't know, just entertaining characters, I think it'll just for entertainment purpose, that's just great. I mean.
Yeah, this reminds me of that this one meme that had popped up in our r/Kollywood subreddit. That if Dragon becomes a big enough of a success, Akshay Kumar will set his eyes on it and remake it, calling it Killadi Raghavan. with, with curly hair Akshay Kumar, we got curly hair Akshay Kumar before GTA 6. Yeah, but ஆமா எனக்கும் அதேதான் லைக் கைப்புள்ள சொன்ன மாதிரி that I want to see Pradeep, because I think he's in a very unique position that no actor can really sort of cover his niche right now, because they're either too big. Like a Sivakarthikeyan is too big to do in the Mari characters,
yeah.
right? Like it wouldn't work as well. I'm not saying he can't pull it off, but he has a certain star aura now. He comes with certain expectations. அது இது பண்ண மாட்டேன் அது பண்ண மாட்டேன்லாம் they'll have some நிபந்தனைகள். So I think he's in that very unique space where they can explore raw rooted stories that everyone can connect with, universal themes and all that. And I think that's testament to why இந்த படம் தெலுங்குலயும் ஒர்க் ஆயிருக்கு அப்படின்றதுன்றது. Because usually college movies வந்து they depend on the cultural இதுல zeitgeistல. Like a meme that works in Tamil will not translate in Telugu because அங்க இருக்கிற meme culture வேற. So it doesn't, the joke will get lost in translation. Don also, I think, suffered from that only. He didn't do as well as his Tamil counterpart. But the Dragon in Telugu is doing supremely well. So if anything, are the proof that as long as your themes are universal and everyone can connect with them, language is just a menial barrier. Which brings us back to the biggest question on everyone's minds now. Especially everyone who, like us, has a certain connect to Kollywood. இப்போ ஒரு படம் வந்து கருத்தும் பேலன்ஸ் பண்ணணும், கமர்ஷியல் எலிமெண்ட்ஸையும் பேலன்ஸ் பண்ணணும்னா இந்த படம் அதை ஐடியலா பண்ணிச்சா, ஆர் இஸ் திஸ் கோன் செட் த ட்ரெண்ட் கோயிங் ஃபார்வர்டுன்னு நீங்க நினைக்கிறீங்களா?
I think this is, if Kollywood definitely moves in this direction of breaking their own stereotypes, then that in itself is just great. இதுக்கு அப்புறமும் அந்த கிளீஷே ஸ்டைல்ல அந்த கெத்து பேக் பெஞ்சர் ஸ்டோரிஸ் வந்தா, தென் தேர் கிளியர்லி நாட் லேர்னிங் டிராகனை பார்த்துட்டு. But yeah, I would love if it moves in this sort of direction space where they're kind of just having fun, but at the same time, there's this like clear, deep-rooted message in their stories.
சீஸ் ப்ரோ, உங்க கருத்து?
See, எனக்கு என்னன்னா, the films that manage to stick the landing with a particular message, right, are the films that are not made necessarily to dispel that message. They are inherently made to tell a story and show a character journey, and the message comes through organically, right? I mean, subconsciously, the message might drive the way the script is written, but then you are not writing a script to write that message. So I think the core plot and the core character arc of a message film has to work in order for the message to resonate with the audience. I think Kolly, especially when we've had a bad history of films where you have the right intentions, the message is also not bad or anything, but then you're so obsessed about getting that right, you kind of drop the ball on everything else.
Yeah, actually நீங்க சொல்றதுதான் ப்ரோ, லைக் எனக்குமே தோணுச்சு. ஏன்னா லைக் இப்போ while I'm happy that இந்த படம் வந்து ஒரு டார்ச் பேரரா இருக்கு, that okay, this is probably the way commercial cinema should be in terms of combining messaging and themes. What I'm more scared of, and especially since நீங்க சொன்ன மாதிரி Kolly has a very bad track record of this, is that people will start harping on this just for the sake of being in the trend. Like இப்போ ஓகே இது இந்த படத்துல ஒர்க் ஆச்சு, ஸோ நானும் சப்வர்சிவ் ட்ரோப்ஸா பண்ற மாதிரி, subverting the trope just for the sake of subverting it without any actual plot motivation or character motivations ன்ற மாதிரி. They'll try making some zany offbeat and the மாதிரி, and then wonder why it isn't working, because again they'll forget the foundations. Sees bro சொன்ன மாதிரி, which I think is a great way to put bring us back full circle about the movie's central theme, is that if you try and build something without a strong foundation, it's going to fall apart one way or the other. ஒரு சின்ன போய் மிஸ் ஆனா கூட அது போயிடும். Like it's very difficult to pull off. It's entirely dependent on flukes. So so in a way the movie is self-referential that way. It's a cautionary tale to people who want to imitate its success in the future in a way. So I think that about brings us to the end of this, right guys? Any closing thoughts on this movie?
Has Pradeep ever made a flop film so far? No, right?
No outright flop.
He's done Komali, Love Today, and that's it. No, I don't think he has any flops.
There's no outright flop. There's no outright flop.
I mean, I'm old enough to remember when Vinod Kamble scored 2 double centuries back to back. So it feels a bit like that right now. I just hope, like we said, that he continues, because he's captured a niche that very few people can fill in, and I just hope he doesn't get into this urge of doing this mass masala movies, and let SK take that space for a while before this guy goes there. Because his niche is very good, and I think he should probably stick to that. I think he's truly arrived with this one, honestly. And I think LIK வந்து நல்ல first class opening வரும், especially him and Vignesh and whatnot.
So guys, that was Dragon. Hopefully, you guys managed to catch it in theaters around you. You definitely should. This is a an eye opener of a movie for Kollywood, and yeah, let's see what the future holds now that this movie is out and making waves and doing all that. So yeah, what if you guys enjoyed this episode? Let us know in the comments what you thought. What have you watched Dragon? Give us your review in the comments. And if you want to support the podcast, please do subscribe and hit the like button. It would help us in our reach. We've been growing a lot thanks to you guys. We're grateful for every one of you who shows up and listens to us yap about movies, just because. So yeah, thanks guys. It's been a great day. See, catch you in the next one. Peace.
See ya.